Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Beacon 147, episode numero 5. My name is Bobby, aka Gradius, and today I am joined by Thomas, aka Noble Apocalypse.
Hello.
So, looking at our notes for today, we've got a lot of stuff to cover. Lots of stuff.
Yes.
So I think we're just going to freaking dive right on in.
Yep, I first want to start with just a correction. This comes from NetAndy from the RSI forums. We mentioned that the Hangar module was going to be released in early fall, and that's accurate, but we have a more exact time frame. It's going to be released in August during Gamescom, so we should see some more information on that.
Just in time for my
soon.
birthday. That's a birthday.
Very cool.
You know what? They found out that it was my birthday in August, mid-August, and they did that just for me. I appreciate it.
It makes perfect sense. It's totally logical.
Yeah. So, I was pretty impressed, and Thomas, I have to say, you were right.
Nailed it.
You were right. $10 million.
Yep, I think I predicted by June 15th that they would hit 10 million back in episode number 2 or 3. Well, they did it on June 10th, and Chris Roberts posted the RSI group posted a video on the YouTube from Chris Roberts, thanking us for getting us there, and also showed us what that $10 million stretch goal really means. We now get, of course, the OptiTrack motion capture, and during the video, we got to go to the Natural Point HQ, the developers of the OptiTrack motion capture stuff. We got to see kind of how it all worked and some of the unique pieces of it. Something that was really cool that I had never seen before in motion capture, and I'm a fan of it, particularly in film and cinema, is the virtual camera. Typically what you do in a 3D environment and motion capture environments is you have a virtual camera, one that's computer-based. You're in your computer and your track is in the computer. Or you have a physical camera that's on rails, and kind of similar to like a regular studio shoot that you might see, like on 30 Rock. You kind of get into, it's kind of more behind the scenes of how a show works. You get to see like a camera on rails. Well, they actually mocap a virtual camera, so you get to see you get that more of that steady cam, shaky cam type feel in a lot of action scenes, which keeps it feeling more organic. An example of kind of what that would look like. Battlestar Galactica used that a lot.
Yes, they did. Every single time. Every single time there was a space scene, it'd be like, oh look, there's the Battlestar Galactica, and then it zoom in and then shake, and then like zoom in and shake. You just keep going.
Yeah, it's one of those small things that adds a little bit of character, and some extra drama. So it's pretty exciting that we're going to get to see that. We also get to see a lot of the camera tech and the manufacturing, and how all that comes together. And we get to see Brian Brewer, who's the lead animator at Cloud Imperium Games, do some basic calibration. So if you're at all interested in, cinematography or, animation or mocap, the film focuses, or the video focuses more on that, since that was the $10 million stretch goal, and you get a good idea, you get a good kind of behind the scenes look at how it is all going to come together for those of us that speak English.
Well, one of the things I like the most is, a lot of games now are going the motion capture route as opposed to just the standard 3D animation route. I mean, I've used some 3D animation programs myself, like Poser or Maya, yeah. And when you use those programs, unless you're really good at it, the motion can seem kind of rigid, right?
To me, it always seems either too rigid or too fluid. I mean, everyone has kind of those natural imperfections in how they walk. Nothing's straight lines or perfect arches. There's, jitter here and there, or, abrupt angles or turns that it's hard to represent digitally. And it's really, motion capture, it's kind of one of those blessings, and at the same time, it's kind of a curse, because motion capture done poorly looks just as bad as traditional animation techniques.
That's true. But looking at this studio that they're using, and the tech that they're using, I have a gut feeling that at least the character animations in the game are going to be pretty solid.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I mean, they didn't pick a hole in the wall cheap fly-by-night group. They made sure that they got the right people and the right type of innovative minds that, Cloud Imperium Gaming is full of. They got that right group of people behind it and the right technology, and I think it's going to pay off in spades.
Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yep.
So, I guess kind of moving on, I guess there's kind of talk of, this is more like in-game type of stuff. Looks like they're adding, I don't know, let's talk about the repair of ships and the repair of ship holes and that sort of thing.
In the most recent Spaceman's parking lot, aka Wingman's hangar, there was an interview with, well, not interview, but Chris Roberts was down, and he answered a lot of the forum feedback type questions. And this was really cool because it, he was able to go into a lot of detail, and with it being him, he didn't feel like he couldn't say things. So one of the questions that were brought up is, how are repairs going to take place on a ship? And, are there going to be, automated repairs, kind of similar to the Star Trek style? You just hit a button and magically repairs start happening. Are there going to be repair bots, or will you be able to go out and do EVAs and, repair your ships? And he said they're going to try to put as much of that as possible in the game.
His answer was yes.
His answer was yes, and we're going to try to do crazy things like EVAs.
Yeah.
And an EVA, for those of you that don't know, is extravehicular activity. That's like a spacewalk. It's when you get out of your ship and a spacesuit and you start doing shit. And that would be kind of hard in a ship, let's say like the 300i or the Hornet, that doesn't necessarily have an airlock. But on some of the larger ships, and it's easier, of course, when you have what are the things called? Ports, docking portal, coupler thingy, whatever words that don't know them. That you'll have that airlock. It's easier for you to get outside of your ship and actually make the repairs. And from an animation point, it's a lot easier to animate, a door opening on a whatever cargo.
Make sure you got everything tied down
thing
before you open that door.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to open a door there than to actually open up the cockpit glass. So he said that may not be initially in at release, but it is something that we can count on seeing perhaps down the road. And that's pretty unique. You'll be able to it's to me, it's just cool. It adds that whole new level of realism and immersion.
Yeah.
That we keep hearing, being touted in this game. So I love the idea, and I don't. This probably won't happen, but I just love the idea of I'm in an epic battle. I make it out just crippled. I'm gimping along. I go outside of my airlock and put on my spacesuit, then go outside the airlock.
Put on the old gravity boots.
And walking along my hull, or floating near my hull, and pulling out my space soldering gun and welding torch, and start putting some panels on. Meanwhile, a pirate who is hiding behind an asteroid comes out and starts, and we have this epic battle in spacesuits. Very, I don't know. Reminds me just how cool would that be. It's kind of like
fighting with space
the
wrenches.
Star Trek film. Yeah, you're having to dodge shit, and I don't know. I just think it'd be kind of fun. So
Yeah.
I doubt we'll see that level of complexity. I mean, that's obviously something that's going to be really complex and hard to do. And I would much rather them make a finished game than spend all their time doing EVA repair space combat missions.
But you know what though? They could even turn that into a profession. If you get to the point where your ship just gets banged up so much, maybe you could pay someone else to fly over and hop out of their ship and help you out.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of cool.
And they've said in the past, that you're gonna have the ability to do some internal ship repairs yourself. And that some of the potential crew members that you bring on your ship will have that ability as well.
That is true.
I'm thinking, as you have a ship that carries 3, 4, 5 plus people, it might be cool to have somebody running around in the middle of a battle doing everything they can to, doing their Scotty impressions. She's got captain.
Yeah,
that'd be
you're
cool.
just sitting there flying, trying to avoid pirates getting shut up, and you yell at the guy in the back, holy crap, go fix the trans-continuum flux capacitor thing. And
exactly. You need that trans-continuum flux capacitor. Yeah. I mean, that's an essential piece.
How else are you
going
to travel through time?
Yeah, I mean, it's what is it, like 16 gigawatts?
1.21 gigawatts.
Oh, I was trying to murder all science fiction franchises in one. Like everything possible. I was going to have the toasters repaired with Doctor Who's time machine while Scotty is teleporting.
While you're being attacked by Cylons.
Stargate. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Well, you know, a lot of people have been comparing Star Citizen to Eve because at this point, really, there's not anything else to really compare it to on that level. And right now, when you're playing Eve and you're doing repairs, it's just, you know, you hit a button. If you have a repair thing equipped on your ship, you hit a button.
Spreadsheets in space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's not immersive. You know, it's just, oh crap, I'm getting attacked. I'm just gonna hit this button and magically my ship's getting repaired.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, and there is. Well, I mean, there is some benefit to doing that sort of thing. I mean, it allows you as one individual to handle relatively complex tasks. You know, if you're having to manually repair a ship, manually pilot your ship, manually target your lasers, you know, manually make course adjustments, it makes it a lot more difficult. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but it does require. I don't want to use the word difficulty because that you know it's not a difficulty thing.
Critical multitasking skills.
Well, I mean, not only that, it's physically not possible to hold a torch, repair a conduit, make course corrections, and fire torpedoes at the same time. I mean, just physically, if you were on your ship, that would not be happening at the same console, at the same work environment.
You know, I was thinking though. I mean, if you think about it though, that might be one of the not barrier. Well, maybe it is a barrier, like a barrier to entry for getting a larger ship that's capable of having more passengers on board.
Well, they have said that you will be able to hire a crew of NPCs to help you with those tasks.
Okay, well, if that's the case, that makes more sense because if I'm flying around in my Aurora, there's one pilot seat. You know, there's
right.
I don't know what the crew size is. Isn't it like 2 or 3 for an Aurora? I think maybe. But
I think the Aurora is just one.
Is it really? There's no guest on that one?
I can double check real quick, but I think it's one.
I mean,
I better check it, or we're gonna get a correction.
We will get a correction. Someone will let us know. But I mean, if you're in a let's say it is one seater. That's cool. I mean, you have to do everything yourself. I mean, there is no crew, right? So if your Aurora gets shot up, how are you going to repair it? I mean, you pretty much have to. You would have to kind of stop and do something, unless they do have some sort of automated thing added, like a repair droid or like R2-D2.
Yeah, and they did say that we would have repair droids. Now, it may be, like you said, I mean, the Aurora is a one-person crew. I just confirmed that, so anger emails can stop. It is one person. You know, so you may not have an R2-D2 sized or C-3PO sized droid running around, for lack of better droid analogies. You may have, repair subsystems, something, increase structural integrity by putting force fields up or whatever. I mean, that makes sense, but if you lose, I don't know, an engine thruster module because it was shot off, doesn't matter how good your structural integrity force fields of magic are, you're kind of screwed. You're going to need to pull over and call up Space AAA and have that repaired.
Yep. Let them know that you're stranded. You've got all your space magic bubbles protecting your ship, and you need help repairing it.
Just make sure you have that Space AAA card, because if you don't have it, they just leave you hanging, and that's not a nice thing.
Yeah. It'd be horrible. I mean, if the flaps on your ship broke while you were flying, and you couldn't steer because your flaps weren't working.
Yeah, the epic YouTube discussion of flaps in space. And I still stand by that my flaps in space. And I did direct message Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse Tyson on Twitter, and I'm waiting for confirmation from that. So as soon as I get my confirmation,
if you get a response from Neil deGrasse Tyson, I mean, that is literally that's it. I mean,
I win the internet.
Yeah,
all of the internet, I have won. It's mine.
Do flaps work in space?
And the answer is no. Under 99.9999999% of the time, flaps do not work in space.
There you go.
But kind of going on to that same topic of repairs, there might be times when you have to land on an unsavory planet like one that we featured in the past, and let's say there are the unsavory sorts running around. A question was asked: will shops or NPCs be able to be robbed? And Chris answered that pretty straightforward and said no. Planets are safe zones. There will be bad people on planets, but as of now, on the planets, you will be safe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there may occasionally be like a third-person mission that you have to do, which might increase the danger, and you might potentially come into harm by accepting a mission. However, in general, walking around in the cantina, you're going to be unshankable. And,
yes, you'll all just be sitting around the cantina looking at each other like, "Ooh, I'm gonna kill you," but not right now.
There'll be no lightsabering of wrist offs and blasters under the table, but for the most part, you will be safe under most of the under most conditions, and if you're not, you'll know why, or it'll be very clear to you. And that only makes sense. I mean, if you had the ability for an NPC to be robbed, what's the point? I mean, talk about economy manipulation at a grand scale.
Yeah.
If you could take away something from an NPC, now, I mean, that's awesome and that's cool, and the idea from immersion and realism. But I mean, when you're in an MMO, essentially, merchants in most cases have unlimited inventory.
Yeah.
Because potentially you have an unlimited number of players that come through. If you could take ownership of that inventory, it doesn't work. The game mechanics just don't support that. So
now I'm sure in space it will. Like if you're flying in space and you see that NPC and you're like, I'm totally gonna rob that guy later, and he launches in his transport ship and you go up in space and blow his butt up. I mean, loots. It's all yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Some more questions were brought up about the Hangar module, and I'll try to cover as many of them as I can as quickly as I can. In the preview videos, and I think we made this comment as well, we really only saw the small ships. We saw the 300i, the Hornets. We didn't really see some of the bigger ones like the Constellations. And, the Hangar module is, in theory, infinitely expandable. So if you have 20 ships, you'll be able to see all 20 of them, which I said could be a hindrance on your frame rate. But the larger ships will be on a separate level. They kind of showed the lower level, the lowest tier of the cake, which has the smaller ships. But you could go up a floor or a deck, essentially, and see some of your larger ships that you've purchased. And continuing in that same mindset, they asked about character customization. Will that be available in the Hangar module? And the answer to that is no. It will be coming in a later module, most likely the Planet Side module, which will be coming out in early 2014.
Well, that makes sense too, right? Though, because I mean, essentially, all the Hangar module is it'll connect to your account list. It'll know what ships you have, and essentially, it's just a camera. I mean, you're not even a person. You're just a camera floating around in the Hangar module, moving around.
I don't know if that's 100% accurate.
I don't know. The demo that we saw, that was the case, but that was an early demo.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably zoomed into first-person view. Almost definitely you're going to get third-person view in the Hangar module, because they mentioned that you'll be generic human male model with an RSI spacesuit.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe they just said that in case you happen to catch yourself in a reflection, and it makes sense. But I would assume, and also assuming that it is the Crytek engine, that you're going to get third-person view in the Hangar module. And why else mention the, generic human male model with the RSI spacesuit? So maybe they're going to take it, kind of a Portal style where it's first person, but you can, if you angle the camera just right and twist in just the right direction, you can get an idea of what your character looks like.
Yeah.
Another question was brought up about the NDA. Will there be an NDA for the Hangar module, the alpha, betas, etc.? To be honest with you, it really wasn't answered.
It'd be kind of weird though. You know what I mean? Because this is like a crowd-funded thing.
Right.
Would that even work?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really have the press Steam machine behind it, that you normally get when you have a traditional AAA developer like EA, Activision, something like that, pushing out a new title, where Blizzard being excluded, you pretty much know what you're getting.
Yeah.
There's enough, you'll see it at E3 2 years before it comes out, and it'll look amazing and blow your socks off, and then you'll see it at E3 the year that it's launched, and you'll go, well, what happened to the 60 frames per second? Why are the polygons halved?
Right.
And then you get an idea at that point of what the game's actually going to look like and what you're going to get. And we saw that in Rift, and the secret world. I mean, as much as they tried to keep a lot of that stuff under wraps, simply you have to advertise your game.
And they've been pretty transparent about everything too. I mean,
Right.
well, one, because they're trying to put as much stuff into the game that they can based on what the community wants, right? So, I don't really see there being an NDA period for. Now, this is just speculation on my part, but I really don't see there ever being an NDA for this game. Ever, even alpha and beta. I don't know. I just don't see how that would work.
I could see for potentially the alpha and beta of Squadron 42 initially, trying to keep as much of that under wraps as far as storyline goes. They might say, you can show clips, but we prefer that you not show, spoilers.
I can see it for the story.
Maybe, but as far as Star Citizen proper goes, the hangar module, the dogfighting module, I don't see why you would want an NDA.
Yeah, I could see. You're right. I could see it for the story and the campaign, and that's it. Because that's really the only thing that could get spoiled, because everything else they're so transparent about, and yeah. Yeah,
he did say, when he dodged the question, he kind of spun it and said, there will be, we'll go to our legal team, and, it'll essentially be that this is pre-alpha software, expect it to break, expect there to be glitches and things like that, so don't expect this to be representative of the final product. But, that's typical non-NDA type stuff. That's typical just disclosures for anything. Anytime you're releasing even software in its final release form, you kind of just say that bad things might happen and it's not our fault.
Yeah.
So, another question was asked regarding ship naming. And we have ship naming. We were talking about Eve earlier. You're able to name your ship. But one of the things that they would like to see happen, and Chris mentioned this, was having the ability of not only naming your ship, but have it go decaled on your hull. So, you see those iconic shots, and it's really obvious, like in the Star Trek franchise. You get those iconic, beautiful exterior shots of the ship where the camera pans around and the lights come on, and you see the name of your ship across the hull.
I've already got all of my ship names picked out.
The Tyrannosaurus Rex, the Velociraptor,
the Moldy Crow, and 10 points for Gryffindor if you can figure out what that's from. Leave a comment, and if you do, 10 points to whatever house you represent. And if you say Hufflepuff, never mind, you're not getting your 10 points.
You get minus 10
10
points.
points.
Yeah. Now, of course, it wasn't confirmed. That it was just mentioned that that's something that they want to do. But anytime you have a publicly visible name in an MMO, the ESRB tends to get a little bit antsy about that, because instead of having a ship called, the Avenger LX331, you might get, 11-inch dildo enforcer. And that's not necessarily something that's appropriate, and that was probably about as PG as I could make it.
I'm sorry, I almost lost my shit there.
So they said there might be a there might, and more than likely will be, some sort of a vetting process. And to me, I think anything that you are going to have publicly facing should be vetted. And since this game is free to play, essentially after you make your gate, your cost of purchase to own the game, that to me is a revenue model. You want to put your clan logo on your ship, you want to put your name of your ship on your ship, whatever decal, then microtransaction that, and if it's approved, you get it on your ship. But I'll pay them $1 or $2 so they can look at my name.
I want to see Squadron
Vagina
logos
Dicer
and
9000.
everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to see all of that, and to me, I think that's worth them charging a couple bucks and getting some revenue.
I'll pay $5 to have my Squadron logo put on all my ships or whatever. Why not?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and that should be happen. I'm going to say it now. While I would love for it to be free, as I whack my microphone, while I would love for that to be free, realistically, I want them to charge for that. I want there to be a process of me putting cash down, so someone physically has to look at it and approve it. Because if I can't get the 11-inch dildo Master 9000 on my ship, because it has the word dildo in there, people are going to do like D exclamation mark, B0
D period I period.
Yeah. So at that point, you might as well just call it the dildo 11-inch destroyer of worlds or whatever you want to call it. So I think you should have to pay, and I think if your name doesn't get approved, they should keep your money. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna be ridiculous about it, you know, have them take your money, and it doesn't have to be much, 99 cents, you know, a couple bucks, whatever. Revenue model, RSI, come to me. I've got nothing but ideas in here about how you can make money.
You got
and
the
do it fair.
marketing genius here.
So one of the stretch goals that we did meet earlier was the mobile app, and they kind of one of the questions was, you know, well, can we expect a mobile app? Well, obviously yes, we hit the stretch goal. So what are we gonna get?
I want to chat with my squadron mates on my phone while I'm supposed to be working. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming some of the stuff that they mentioned, you know, it's going to be a companion app. You're going to get news feeds, mission logs, and all of this is, you know, potential. So some of this could change. You know, the ability to do your commerce. You know, this was the one thing that they mentioned though that made me flip my freaking crap, because if they do this, I can't wait. Second screen for cockpit. How cool would that be?
Oh, to sit there with like your iPad
flips.
or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, take it very Xbox Glass style. And, you know, while it's a little cheesy on the Xbox Glass, because I don't really think it's been fully baked yet. You haven't really seen it being utilized appropriately. But this is the type of thing that it's perfect for.
Yeah.
You know, a radar screen. Even if it's just that. If it's just a radar screen and all I have is a little bloop, bloop, you know, and ships, that's fine. But the idea of it potentially having readouts and, you know, my nav maps, that's amazing. Something that's low latency, of course. I don't ever see this being, you know, a true video, you know, 60 frames per second plus, you know, I don't know, crosshairs to target a ship. I mean, if they do that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But I don't see it happening realistically. But just that ancillary information, you know, your star charts, your radar, something that's relatively not heavy bandwidth-wise, and, you know, throw it on the same network as your computer and go to town.
You know, I would love to, you know, real life situation, okay? Crap, I'm sitting here playing, you know, and I look at the clock. Oh, crap, I've got to go to work, or I've got some job to go do, or I have to go grocery shopping or whatever. I'm going to dock my ship, okay? While I'm out and about, I want to pull up my inventory on my phone, and I want to say, okay, I want to take those microorganisms and those, you know, other things, and I want to start crafting. I want to, while I'm out and about, I can set up a queue for crafting and stuff, and then when I come back home and I log back in, I've got all this stuff that I was able to do. I was productive while I was away from the game. If that happens, wow.
Well, and I know that was kind of one of those things that really the best parallel, and people will probably tell me I'm crazy, but the best parallel, best example of this working in game is the WoW companion app for iOS and Android.
Yeah, I mean,
and
you could do the auction house and stuff on that, right? Or
yeah. One of the things that they were very specific about saying, and there are limits on the application, and it's not limits because technologically it can't happen. It's limits because of gaming.
Yeah.
Because people will figure out a way to game the mechanics. You know, so they limit the number of auctions that you can post. You know, they don't allow you to craft because they do actually want you to log in occasionally and not just build this massive trade empire via your
not even
device.
Playing the game. Yeah.
Exactly. So I like the idea of allowing me to do some basic commerce, you know, 10, 15, 20, whatever auctions, and basic level crafting. You know, depending upon how crafting manages to work its way out. But I'm 100% in favor of putting limits on that application where, you know, this is a companion app. This is not the game. You still have to log in. So if it's, you can only craft one item and then you have to log back in, or you can only use the companion app, you know, for 2 hours until your next login.
They could do like a lot of those free like flash games. Like you look at those games on Facebook. God, I hate those things. But anyway, if you look at those, they have like an energy meter, right? And you have 100% energy, and as you perform certain tasks, your energy goes down, but then your energy recharges slow, like you get a point per hour, so that, you know, you can do it like once a day effectively, or do small things very often, but large things not as often. If they did it like that, that would make sense.
Absolutely. I just kind of I appreciate the WoW mentality in their app because I mean, there's 11, well, I don't know, probably 4 million people or whatever. Someone's going to yell at me, some WoW nerd, say, oh, it's 6.3 million. But there's millions, plural, of people that play WoW. And of those millions, there are hundreds of thousands probably that are exploiting that game in some capacity economically.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that that exploit is having to occur with them being logged in the game, with the potential of a game master or other player seeing what they're doing and taking care of business.
Absolutely.
So if it's just limited to the game, or just limited to the application, I want there to be that gating. I want there to be that. Tell me about some of the other companion apps. If post comments. I know Rift has one. So if you guys have seen other companion apps and how they work, more than just an authenticator in a chat and a couple auctions, and I think the Rift app had like lottery scratchers. Where
yes,
man,
I can't tell you how much. Well, this is actually pretty funny. I can't tell you how much in-game money I was able to make off of that because of you do a scratch off. Oh, I won an item in the game, or like an artifact. You can go sell that artifact for in-game money. So, I mean that is a nice aspect of like a mobile app. It's not immersive by any means because you're not doing anything really for your character. I mean, I guess you could consider it artifact hunting, but I mean that's very, I don't know. It's not exactly that. So, but still, I mean, I think they're on the right track. I mean, as far as functionality of a mobile app. So
yeah, to me the killer feature would be that second screen, and more than anything else that it's one. I mean, chatting in guild, clan, corporate, whatever chat you want to call it's awesome. Chatting with your friends is awesome. That's great. Your basic auction house, your lore, whatever. But
it would be good though to have something that you can actually do. Like you can accomplish something while not playing the game, but it'd be limited. I mean, yeah.
So we shall see, though. I think that's pretty exciting. I can't wait to see where they go with it. And even if it is just the basic chat auction type stuff, I would rather have it than not have it. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. Another question was brought up: probes or satellites? Or is there going to be any of that type of stuff? We see it in EVE where you can have probes flying around your ship, combat probes, and mining probes and things like that. And the answer was pretty much no. They're going to be, all sorts of avionics and scanners with various range updates and etc. But they're going to be trade-offs. If you have 4 hard points, for example, and you want to supplement your avionics, you're going to have to use some of those hard points,
That's
which
good.
Then is a trade-off of your defensive or offensive capabilities. And you're exactly right. To me, that's good. That to me that encourages specialization.
It does, yeah.
If I'm going to be an explorer, I can't just roll around with the biggest guns I can find and go to town. I'm going to have to supplement that defensive or offensive capability by I'm going to have to reduce those offensive and defensive capabilities by putting avionics on my ship to be a more effective explorer, and vice versa.
Well, and if you're an explorer and if you have to equip certain items on your ship, let's say that those items have to go into the weapon hard points on your ship. So you're going out and exploring. You have limited, if any, combat effectiveness, but you're exploring. You're discovering new things and new riches and new places to go and that sort of thing. Or heck, even charting or navigating a wormhole, like Chris was saying in one of those videos. But when you're doing something like that, you may need help. You may need an escort, right? So that alone promotes teamwork, I think.
Yeah, it's to me, I love that. I love the idea of having to depend upon your team, or having to pay mercenaries for that matter to assist you when you're trying to do various tasks that you're just simply not able to do on your own. And by forcing you to make trade-offs, that just encourages that behavior.
Absolutely.
Kind of keeping on the same topic with, is there going to be a clear indication of what's an NPC or what's a player at the ship level or at the planet side level when you're looking at characters versus spaceships or vehicles? And Chris Roberts said, he's a fan of immersion, so it may not always be black and white. So it's still somewhat in the air of how it's going to be. I mean, almost definitely you're going to know, if you're mining an asteroid, and some ships fly in, there'll probably be an indication, okay, well, that's an NPC fighter versus a player fighter. But it's not necessarily going to be, Eve style, where if it's friendly, it's green. If it's bad, it's red. It may not be as black and white, or in this case, green and red.
Well, going back, I mean, if you think about it, back in like Wing Commander or Privateer, where let's say Privateer, when you're flying around and you enter a waypoint, whether it's just a standard waypoint or a jump point or anything, there were other ships that were there, and they weren't. The only place that you could see them was they were a little dot on your radar, okay? And if you turned to look at them, there wasn't like a big square around them saying, oh, hey, look over here, there's a ship. I mean, you actually had to target them before you saw any indication of where they were. So if they were really far away,
Right.
I mean, you couldn't, it was hard to see them until you hit tab or T or whatever the button was to target them. Then the little square came up on them. You saw all the information about their ship, all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, it relied on, you had to visually scan them down on your radar before you had any indication of, what type of ship they were flying, that sort of thing. And even then, the little dots on the screen, I mean, they were blue if they had like a Terran Confederate, signal, but there were some ships that were just flat out gray, and they were neutral, so you didn't know was that a merchant, was that a retro that was going to come kill you, or you didn't know until you tabbed over, looked at them, saw what the heck was going on, and then sometimes those little gray dots would turn red, and they would attack you. Got a little crazy.
I'm a fan of IFFs. Put those little beacons out there to identify who you are and your friend, if you're a friend or foe. But I do like the idea of it being a little bit of a mystery. Is this in space? Things are a lot further away than what they are, terrestrially. So, you don't really get a concept of how big something is just because you can see it. You have to, you really have to get close to it or put it next to something to get an idea of scale. So I like the idea of not always knowing just based on what you see if somebody is as a friend or a foe or potentially a player character, an NPC. I like having that investigative quality behind it, where you have to do more than just a visual look on my radar screen to figure out good, bad, friend, foe, things like that.
I mean, I can tell you right now. I mean, if they don't color coordinate it, or if players are a neutral color on like your radar or whatever, that adds a whole nother level of, I don't know, like I'm flying in space and there's an asteroid, I'm gonna go mine it real quick. Okay, someone just jumped into my waypoint. They're gray, they're neutral. When that sort of thing happens in Eve, when a neutral jumps into a system, especially if you're in unsecure space, most of the time people freak out and run home. It's like, oh crap, there's a neutral. Mm-hmm. He's probably going to kill me, so I'm not even gonna take the chance. I'm gonna run home. In a system like Wing Commanders, you had nav points, right? Nav point 1, nav point 2, nav point 3. Then home. I don't think you could go, nav point 2 straight to, the home system. I think you had to go to 1, then home, that sort of thing. So maybe,
and it's probably going to be the same way.
Yeah.
And Star Citizen, because they've mentioned the idea that you're gonna hop from one zone to another zone to another zone. It's gonna be kind of instanced in that sense. So, I mean, I'm sure they'll have some sort of a hearth mechanic, the fleet pass or something along those lines that
it'll cost you $1.
Cost you $1. Pay to win, but
pay the GTFO.
Yeah. The GTFO button costs $5. Yes. Would you like to press? I think it'll be instanced, and I think we're gonna see having to jump from A to B to get to C, not just going from C to A. most, all the time. I'm almost positive
It'd be good though.
A mechanism.
I mean, it's always best to fly safe, and if you're not flying safe, you're opening yourself up for attack. Especially if you're in those seedier systems, where you're far away from, the protection of the local, governing forces or whatever. So you don't fly with an escort and you're out there trying to make some money, then you're doing it wrong.
Speaking of CD attacks, one of the final questions that was pretty relevant was regarding modular damage to ships and how is that going to happen. They hinted to the fact that there's going to be visual cues on your ship to show that it's been damaged. If your wing has been damaged, then you're going to tell on your wing that your wing has been damaged. If one of your retro rockets or afterburners has been destroyed, you're going to see the fact that one of your retro rockets or afterburners have been destroyed. It may not be, let's say, as accurate as if I held up a sheet, with the sun behind it and pulled out a shotgun and took a shot. I'd see the buckshot come through, and then there'd be perfect holes to line up with perfect shots. It's probably not going to be that accurate or that realistic, but it will be obvious, that your wing has been damaged, or the forward cannon of awesomeness has been damaged.
Yep. I mean, they did that in all the Wing Commander games too. I mean, if you got shot up on the right side of your ship, oh crap, my right mass cannon doesn't work anymore, so I'm gonna have to aim a little bit differently to hit stuff.
Yeah, and definitely with as accurate as the physics have been touted and as accurate as they can be with the engine. I mean, they have said if a stabilizer or a retro rocket or afterburner or thruster, whatever, has been destroyed, it will affect your maneuverability or, how things fire. So I love the idea of damaged wings, and granted, recoil in space doesn't necessarily work the same way as it does in a gravitational environment. But
oh my gosh, you're going to start a whole nother debate.
I know, I'm going to start a whole new debate.
You've done it now.
But I like the idea of shooting a gun that has a little bit of a kick to it, and it, causing the ship to fall out of the trajectory in which I placed it.
Yeah.
So I like that idea, and I like the idea of my forward, my starboard thruster has been damaged, so now it's harder for me to go right.
Well, your starboard thruster's been damaged, so now you have to call on your trusty crewmate Freddie Prinze Jr. to come and repair it for you.
Why are we bringing him up again?
Every episode, man. Freddie Prinze Jr.
Oh, okay.
He's the hero of Wing Commander. He was Christopher Blair.
Yeah, we'll keep this next section short. We kind of mentioned, because we've been talking about it as we've been going, but one of the things that I wanted to talk about were, kind of what we liked and what we hate from Eve. We talk about it so much, but we don't always go into the specifics as far as this is an Eve and we need this in this game, or this is an Eve and so help me God, this cannot be in this game. I think my biggest hesitation, my biggest hatred for Eve is the inability, I feel, for a new player to join in and to really experience the full growth that, let's say, an early player got. And the best way I can describe that is it's virtually impossible. Now, there are going to be people who have done this, and people are going to say I'm just because I'm a noob and that I'm an idiot and it can be done. And I agree with you. I'm a noob, I'm an idiot, and yes, it can be done. But it is practically impossible for me to start out and to, right now, with all of the enemies and all of the players that are out there, to make a large corporation, to garner my own portion of space and hold it and maintain it. It is practically impossible for a player who starts out today to achieve that in any normal period of time, because the game is so mature and so established. It is the plague of a game that is open world, that's player driven, that if you're not an early adopter, you're never really going to achieve the level that some of the top end people have got, because there's no way. You will always be a little fish in a big pond. That's my biggest complaint against Eve.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess it's one of those, depends on who you know type of things too. I mean,
Yeah, but it shouldn't have to be that though. You know, like, and this is a terrible example, terrible, but and people are going to say that I'm wrong for this as well, and I am. But I like the concept and the idea that as new content gets generated, the previous content, I don't want to say becomes easier, but let's say less of a time sink. So it allows you to escalate your approach to the newer content. I like that concept because it prevents, if it's too hard to get to that end tier of content, you develop a system where only people who are in from the beginning or very early can get to the top, or only people who have no social life, no nothing, and can devote ungodly amounts of time and resources to get there. And there is a lot of things to be, to feel accomplished for if you are a late player and you achieve that. But the gaming population is maturing, and it's older than it's probably ever been. And with a more mature population of gamers, the free time as you get, in your 20s and then 30s and 40s starts to diminish.
Yeah.
So if you make that system to where 3 years from now, 4 years from now, when the game's released and it's a little bit more mature, and people have been seeing on my Facebook, or they've caught one of these videos, my friends are like, oh, I want to play Beacon, or I want to play Star Citizen. I don't want to have to be in the position to tell them, you're going to have to join me, you're going to have to join one of these other communities, or you'll never get to do any of the fun stuff that we get to do.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, I dabble in EVE. I play, I don't know, I probably play a couple hours a day, or just have it running at least a couple hours a day. I may not be doing anything in it, but, one of the things that I find is a lot of the people that I know that play the game, they're on all day long.
Right.
Like whether they're AFK or just they're actually doing things, they're on all the time. And I think it's because in that type of environment, the more sandboxy type of environment, if you're not online all day long, growing or building what you have, or defending your territory, or the 20,000 other things you could be doing, you're
falling behind.
Exactly. You're less effective to your team, your alliance, or your corporation, or whatever. So that, EVE is a huge time sink. It's very difficult for a it's very difficult to log into EVE, play for 30 minutes, and feel like you got anything accomplished.
Yeah, feel like you've accomplished anything.
Right.
In 30 minutes, you might have moved 4 star systems, and you've got 20 more to go to get to your destination.
As opposed to something like, Star Citizen, where, from what I understand, I'll be able to log in, do a mission or two, get some stuff done, get some cool rewards and loot, and then, log off and play on my snazzy mobile app and, keep going.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, that was always my complaint with EVE, because I've wanted a space sim for as long as I can, as long as I've been playing gaming, and for my very first forays into MMOs, I've wanted a science fiction, good physics, focus on the the science, not just the bombs and the laser beams, and EVE would have been that game for me. But I was so tied up in other MMOs at the time, and it didn't really have the media machine that a lot of the other MMO titles had at the time, particularly WoW. So it was something I didn't get that opportunity to be a part of the starting, that first few group. And it definitely shows when you're looking at this going, if I do nothing but train, it will be 6 months of 24-hour training before I can have a ship that can be comparable to people who are killing me.
Yeah.
And that's cool, and that's awesome, and that's great. Like, I'm not knocking that. But it is a bit of a, shit. There isn't, because it is open world, it's not instance in the sense that, okay, well, all people who are kind of new are right here, and when you're kind of more experienced, you're right here.
Yeah, it is a pretty
and there's
pretty
a matchmaking
big universe.
system. Yeah, there's a matchmaking system, so you're kind of always going against people who are similar to your stats, there's none of that. So
Right.
you can, fly your little day one spaceship around, and granted, you're doing dumb things if you're doing this, but, fly your little, early spaceship around, and there's essentially nothing that prevents you from getting your ass handed to you. And there are people in that game who take pleasure from and going to these areas where new people are, because of starting zones and things like that, and destroying people.
Yep.
And it's difficult to do because they do have protection measures in place, but they don't care. They'll destroy
If
3
you've
or
got
4
years
ships
of
because
wealth
they can.
stashed away,
Yeah.
I mean, I lost
Yeah.
a ship, but I killed that guy. I ruined his day,
Yeah.
right?
Right. And then Minorgeddon and all other bullshit. That it's awesome and it's unique, but I don't that to me, I can see how it's intimidating
Yeah.
to players, and I want the community to be lush and rich, not small and elite.
Right. That makes sense.
So, yeah.
I think though, like the typical Chris Roberts, RSI, Star Citizen, Squadron 42 fan is gonna be that guy who's around 30 years old, 30 to 40 years old, who played the original Wing Commander series, who played, Strike Commander, who played all the old school Chris Roberts games, and I think that's going to be the majority of the player base. I mean, sure, I think there's going to be a lot of young, new blood in the game as well,
Which is good.
which is amazing. But I'm glad that the foundation of the player base is going to be that old school crowd.
Yeah, and I think that there is a place for that style of gameplay. If you want to be that jerk that does that type of thing.
Oh yeah.
And that place for you is Eve. So stay in Eve.
I don't. Well, I don't know. There's going to be. I have. There are going to be tons and tons and tons of pirates in this game. I know.
And that's like I said, that's totally fine. I just want to make sure, because I get excited about games, and I know I get excited about stuff that I'm passionate about, and I'm like, oh, you gotta pick up this game, you gotta play it, and it's a tough sell for some people to go. So you mean to tell me to assist you to be on your wing or whatever, your squad of effectiveness, to accompany you on a mission? I'm looking at a 6 to 12 month time commitment before I can even really do anything to help you out at your level. I don't have 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
And that 6 to 12 month period, you're going to be 6 to 12 months further ahead of me.
When time is the barrier to entry, it's never a good thing.
Right. So and that's why I've always been a fan of, when new content comes out, diminish the time required to get to that previous point.
Yep.
I've said it before, I'll say it 100 times. WoW is doing it right in that sense, that they make it less time restrictive. Some people think that less time restrictive means easier, and in some cases it might be, but everybody knows that if you pick up, the game fresh at the start of an expansion, within a week or two, you're pretty much on the same level as everyone else. And that's a great thing. It brings in new blood, it keeps the community vibrant, and that's why there are still 400,000 people who play that game, because they keep the community fresh along that line. And next week, they might only have 5 people that play the game, but it's a testament, I think, to how they do things, that community has sustained itself for as long as it has. Whereas if it was, okay, well, it used to take 12 months to get to level 60. Now it takes 12 months to get to level 60, but you got to, spend another 6 months to get to level 70 and another 6 months to get to level 80. It just makes it harder and harder to get new people in there. And I think that's what has cultivated that elitist attitude in Eve, and that mentality of, well, he's a new guy, let's destroy him just because we can, because there's no consequence, there's no real, it doesn't hurt us at all. And in fact, all we're doing is griefing another person and making their life miserable, and I'm a weakling, and I am on the internet, and I have no fun, and I have no social life, and I get my jollies by making other people miserable because I can't achieve anything in my life. That's why I say, let them play Eve, and let's let the mature audience play Star Citizen. I have a feeling I'm gonna get some nasty emails.
You might get a few nasty grams.
Yeah. And that's not everybody, and that is the minority. That is a very, very small minority, but that minority has become so powerful in many cases. Servers have gone down because they've had to figure out ways to fix things. I never want to see that in Star Citizen. I never want to see a small group of players become so empowered in some capacity that RSI or Cloud Imperium has to bring the servers offline so they can go, oh crap, what do we do to fix this? I never want to see that happen.
Yeah, when it's nice to have the sandbox. I'm a huge fan of sandbox games because I love the ability for players to create everything in the game. But it does when it is one or two extremely large groups who hold a very large portion of the player base, in their ranks.
Wealth,
I mean,
or the economy, any of those type of things, they can destroy it.
Yeah, I mean, if they control it, they pretty much put the game developers at their mercy. I mean, it's like, hey, this is we are the majority. This is how we want things done, and if you don't do it, if you make a change that we don't like, then we're going to ruin the experience of another type of player. You're going to see subscription numbers drop because we pissed other players off and they don't want to play the game anymore. So you're going to listen to us because we're right and you're wrong. Blah 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 blah. Now that's very. There was a very large lack of detail in what I just said there. But if you want to know about all those events like Burn Jita and stuff like that in EVE, you can go look those up. But I mean, essentially, I thought that's what those events were. So it's things like that can keep the player base of a game small and focused on a specific ideology, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and I don't think Star Citizen it ever has its sights on becoming the next WoW or the next EVE, and I think you can have a very successful, rich, and vibrant culture with just 40,000-50,000 players. You can do that. I'm not saying it's a numbers game. But what I'm saying is I want the community to be rich. I want it to be vibrant. I want it to be more than just one or two large guilds or factions controlling everything. That's when it starts to break down. And in my opinion, that's what's happened to EVE. It's a very, very small politically number of people or entities involved that have so much power in the game simply because of the numbers that they've amassed and the fact that their actions frankly limit the amount of new players that come into the community, and that works for that game. But I want space is big.
There's plenty of room for everybody, right?
There's plenty of room for everybody. There should be all sorts of cultures, IRL cultures in the game, religious groups, whatever, race, whatever. I want all of that to feel like it has a place and that it can be vibrant and it can succeed and they can achieve their own goals regardless of how separate their goal is from mine. If they want to be pirates, let them be pirates. Let them do terrible and horrible things. But let's not make it to where the pirates get so powerful that if you want to be a mercenary who's out to right wrongs, can't make it to where they can do that. Don't limit it to where that person will never have that ability, because if they do get lucky and take out one person, they will perpetually be a target for 90% of the ships that they fly next to, because they did one thing that was supposed to be the right thing.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
But one of the things I love about Star Citizen or EVE, and I want to see happen in Star Citizen, is the corporate structure and then the alliance structure.
Yeah,
that's incredible. So you can be part of a guild, and then that guild can be part of a larger alliance, and then that larger alliance, can handle its politics as far as declaring war and things like that, and having the very intricate tree level command of being in a squadron, being in a platoon, being having these different duties. That system in EVE is very supportive of that.
Right.
And I'd love to see that carried over into Star Citizen.
It would be nice. I mean, I don't know how far they're going to go with the squadron or clan or guild functionality or alliance functionality, that sort of thing. But I do hope that at the very least it's something that tries to be similar. I mean, it is nice to have Well, I guess in Eve it is all corporations, right?
Right.
That is how they're built.
That's their catch-all title, yeah.
But I do hope that like the squadrons or the guilds in Star Citizen kind of take on that mold a little bit and offer some of that functionality. I mean, I don't know if it needs to be that deep, but I mean having a guild tax system is cool. Have it because it is nice to be able to, oh crap, Noble Apocalypse got attacked by pirates and he lost his ship while he was out doing some mission for the guild. We want to reimburse him for that loss,
and that will happen frequently. I probably will lose my ship at least 3 times a week. I flew too close to a star, got sucked into its gravitational field, had to eject.
Yeah,
it's not going to be a pretty sight.
So it helps to have that functionality in the game for those types of situations. So I do hope that they kind of go that route. I mean, having the politics and the standings and stuff like that, like, oh, there's we've got our guild, they've got their guild, we'll set our standings to them. They're blue on our radars now. I mean that sort of stuff is cool, but I mean, Eve has so much functionality, like corporate shares and dividends and stuff like that. I don't know if Star Citizen needs that level of detail, complex. But right. I mean, basic, I don't know, a detailed guild structure system would be amazing.
Right.
Not just ranks and promote, demote, kick, and
exactly.
invite.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It needs to be more than he's our fleet leader and these are our fleet commanders and our officers, and you are our fleet members or recruits. I do like my big thing, like I said, is being able to be a part of a guild, and then have that guild be a part of Alliance. And in some way having that kind of that communication back and forth, and that to me is what I really love about Eve, and I want to see, and absolutely taxing and all this stuff, super awesome, love to see it, but it doesn't necessarily need to be as complex as shields and or shares and dividends and putting put and stop orders on things, but definitely would love to see it be more complex than just a roster with ranks.
Right. Well, gosh, we're going over an hour right now.
Not quite. We had a couple minutes, but yeah. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. A couple notes real quick to mention. Don't forget June 28th, the live stream will be starting, the 24-hour live stream event by Cloud Imperium Games with RSI, so check it out. The website's going to be launching during that time frame as well, so please, if you're at all interested, check it out, because there's going to be a ton of new information. There was a lot of bleeps and bloops in the recent Spaceman's parking lot, where I know the reason they were bleeping and blooping it because I didn't want to spoil it early. So that's your chance. Also, a quick but respectful in memory of Andrew, I think it's Reese or Rice, I could be pronouncing it incorrectly, the Oculus Rift co-inventor. He recently tragically had his life cut short. And we just want to let put our positive thoughts, energy, prayer, whatever happens to work for people. Just take a moment and think of his family and be grateful for all the blessings that you have, whatever that may be.
Absolutely. I mean, so. the things that I mean, the Oculus Rift that he helped develop is going to provide such an immersive feel to the game, and I don't know. I think the stuff that he's worked on is going to provide so much entertainment and joy to the people who like to play these types of games that it's very sad to see him go.
Yeah, it's definitely a loss to the gaming community as a whole, and also to the RSI family, because the Oculus Rift is going to be a part of the games that we're going to come to love, and it's sad to know that someone so young is no longer with us.
Absolutely.
But on a brighter note, I'm probably going to get struck to hell for this. I got something in the mail today.
Mm-hmm. I have a feeling there's something that you're holding in front of your webcam right now.
Yes. My metal Star Citizen card came in today, made it through Chinese customs. Very excited.
You should go post it on Reddit so that everybody can yell at you for showing off your card.
I'm gonna make a post, and I'm gonna make it for one. I'm gonna make it an unwrapping video on YouTube.
Ooh.
That needs to happen. My unboxing. I'm going to make a Reddit post. I'm going to make a forum post on every thread in the RSI community, on our guild forums.
You should scan it with your scanner, and make it
everyone
your
has,
forum
right?
signature for every forum that you frequent.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have a flash intro made. I'm gonna send it off to my graphic design and web team, and I'm gonna have a flash intro made for our website where it's like, guess what I got in the mail? Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh.
You could be cool like me.
Star Citizen card, be jelly.
God, I hate you so much.
But anyway, so I finally got mine, so I had to show it off. I'm very excited. It is in its plastic protective wrapper, where it will probably spend the majority, if not all, of its lifespan.
Oh, you're not gonna frame it?
No. So, but anyway, sorry this episode ran a little bit long. We were a few days late on getting this one out to you guys. We were just kind of waiting for a good chunk of news to get together, and we wanted to cover a lot of information, and there was a lot to talk about.
Absolutely.
So, somebody mentioned again. So it was asked on the RSI forum, so I want to mention it. We are on iTunes. It was asked before. Search Beacon 147. We've got all 3 of our feeds on iTunes for download, so if you're watching this on YouTube and you're going, damn, I wish I could have it on my iPod when I'm driving to work or on my morning jog, which, as you can tell, I do a lot of. It is available. Search Beacon 147 on iTunes. I also make sure every a day after the video is released on YouTube that I put those links, those subscribe links, in the comment section there, so you can hit them. There won't be a lot of show links tonight. There really are tonight on the post, because they're really just everything was from pretty much 1 or 2 YouTube videos.
Yep.
So you're not going to see a lot of show notes and links like you normally would see on there. But don't forget, comments on the YouTube channel, comments on the RSI forums, and comments on Reddit. Those are the 3 places we check. So if you have any corrections, any suggestions or ideas, put them there. And I'm throwing Gradius on the spot right now and saying that by the end of this month, so for our first episode in July, we're going to be live streaming this as a Google Plus Hangout for our recordings. So Gradius is now on the spot. So expect more information in our next episode, and then hopefully in July we will start doing these as Google Plus Hangouts during our recording.
Good to know.
Good to know. So I'm putting you on the spot. You can't, it's done. It's
well,
recorded.
I guess I can't say no now.
Can't say no now. You can't. So expect some perhaps some live feedback coming soon next month.
Sounds good to me.
Yep. And if you know anyone at RSI who would like to do an interview, we're free for interviewing anytime.
Yep. Anytime.
So anytime. Chris Roberts.
Just throwing that out there.
Brittany Godfrey.
Freddie Prinze Jr.
Spaceman's Parking Lot.
Matthew Lillard.
We're free.
All right, that's it. We're out of here. Oh my god.
That's it. We have officially gone off the rails. So.
Yep. See you guys next week.
Bye, guys.